This is Frank Morano on Liquid Lunch, sitting in for my friend John Tobacco. John is in the midst of a meeting with the sheriffs right now. These sheriffs that don't even wear sheriff's hats. But lucky me, I get to drink some of his bourbon and talk to some of his terrific guests, including Michael Johns, former speechwriter for George H.W. Bush and a co-founder of the Tea Party movement. Michael, give me your take on where we are with respect to this election. There have been a number of hearings in multiple states in which you have signed affidavits of people alleging some pretty serious instances of misconduct that might go so far as to fraud. In fact, this was a scene out of the state of Georgia yesterday. Let's have a look. I'll ask you to comment on this. Oh, actually, never mind. Two mics do not equal an eco, so we do not have that clip ready. That's my fault, though. I went to it too late. So give me your thoughts on where we are with respect to all these investigations.
Yeah, I'll address the Georgia issue. Here's my bottom line. We have institutions in this country and attorneys and prominent conservatives who have dedicated or said they've dedicated their lives to the protection of the Constitution of the United States. Our representative democracy is a core component of that, Frank. And we have now hundreds of credible allegations, as you say, that aren't even allegations now. They're affidavits, which is evidence in the eyes of a court of law. It's really why affidavits exist. We have a media that completely is disparaging these with adjectives before voter fraud: baseless, groundless, unproven, conspiratorial. None of that is true. I mean, the question really only the only question that really exists at this moment is the magnitude of the fraud, and then some serious questions about the fact that we have a Department of Justice that is charged really predominantly with this function of ensuring free and fair elections, and we got nothing but questions. And we learned yesterday, and I'm incredibly disappointed in this, unless I'm missing something, that we have an attorney general for a month who has not really taken the initiative anywhere in his department of interviewing even one of these fact witnesses or expert witnesses who have signed these affidavits. And, you know, we have a president who I think is kind of in a difficult position now. He's convinced there's vast fraud. Many of us who've looked at it seem to think he's on the right track. And a Department of Justice that, after a whole series of debacles over the last 4 years, is once again not really fulfilling the function that you want to see. As the president said, they haven't really done anything yet. That's incredible to me. 4 weeks later, nothing out of a whole Department of Justice.
So, Michael, by the way, this is that video out of Georgia that I was referencing of poll workers pulling ballots out from under the table. Let's have a look at this, please.
In the morning, we're going to roll this back and show it to you. There you go. So now they're going to start pulling these ballots out from under this table. This table, the black one, was placed there by the lady with the blonde braids at about 8:22 a.m. in the morning. So she put that table there. So the same person who's staying behind now, the same person who cleared the place out under the pretense that we're going to stop counting, is the person who put the table there at 8:22 in the morning. Yeah, I saw 4 suitcases come out from underneath the table. Yeah, upper right hand, you see the gentleman in the red. So he just pulled one out.
So, Michael, keeping in mind the video that we saw, which at the very least looks quite suspicious, keeping in mind the signed affidavits, keeping in mind the whistleblower from Dominion and the eyewitnesses that have seen a lot of other shenanigans, given the timeline here, given the fact that the electors are slated to certify in less than 2 weeks, do you still think there's a realistic possibility that Donald Trump may end up in a second term here, or should we accept the inevitable that there's going to be a Biden administration?
No, I wouldn't still be on this, but I didn't feel the allegations were credible enough and that there was a reasonable possibility of getting to 270, and that there weren't even broader issues here. I mean, we have to come out of this, just for starters, with really systematic changes in the way we conduct these elections. And yet I'm not seeing the urgency on that either. You mentioned Dominion. which has an incredibly flawed history. As far as I know, there too, no Dominion executives been interviewed. They're in hiding, basically. They dodged a hearing in Harrisburg where they were scheduled to appear and answer questions. And I do not understand for the life of me how 2,000 individual jurisdictions in this country, in roughly 28 states, looked around the whole world of the universe of opportunities for acquiring these voting systems and would choose a system with such an incredible documented record of susceptibility to cyber hacking and voter manipulation. And then, of course, its component system, as has been now, I think, hopefully well documented, is a company that was close to Hugo Chavez in Venezuela and was almost created for the purposes of election rigging. They rigged at least two of them in Venezuela, one in Argentina, one in the Philippines, questionable actions in Europe. We have these in 2,000 jurisdictions. And by the way, this isn't just an issue of finger pointing any longer. Like, we have to be asking some serious questions on our side. Like, is anyone at the Republican National Committee, like, on the job as it relates to this issue? I mean, was there anyone who looked at this and was okay with it, or was there no one who looked at it?
Well, yeah, that's the thing I wonder is, I mean, how much of the blame goes to the Republican side for allowing an election to take place under these circumstances? Obviously, the mail-in voting in states like New York and New Jersey and Pennsylvania, that wasn't something that the Republicans could have, raised an issue with, but it may have been in states like Georgia where they could have done something to curtail the use of these Dominion voting machines.
Are we going to use these same systems again January 5 and these two critically important Senate runoff races? I mean, that, to me, again, it's like, where is the sense of urgency as it relates to who is standing up and defending that these are reliable systems? Is that the position of Governor Kemp? Because, I mean, that would be immensely troubling to me. There's no sign of that. There's nothing but flawed histories here.
Yeah.
And I disagree, by the way, with this position that the result is for Georgians not to go out and vote on January 5. What an absurd position that is. We need every vote for those two Republicans down there. We're facing a problem even bigger than Trump's potentially losing a rigged election.
Michael, in our final few minutes, I want to get your take. And look, this issue is not going anywhere, at least for another 2 weeks. And we're going to have you back on next week to chat about this. But let's assume there is a second Biden administration. It's clear that Donald Trump is not your garden variety Republican. I'm not a Republican. I never voted for a Republican before Donald Trump, in part because the Republicans sounded nothing like Donald Trump. Donald Trump has he's created a very different Republican Party. Now, instead of reckless free trade deals, they're embracing fair trade. Instead of embracing these never-ending Middle Eastern wars, they're bringing troops home. Instead of partnering with people like Ted Kennedy on open borders immigration issues, they're getting strict on immigration. My question is, if Trump does lose this election and we have Vice President Biden and he's citizen Trump for the next 4 years, what becomes of the GOP? Are they going to go back to nominating a bunch of losers like Mitt Romney and George Bush and John McCain, or has the party been permanently changed by Trumpism?
Been permanently changed, Frank. We're not going back. And here's the reason why. I've been on both sides of the fence, inside Washington, just about every capacity, Senate, White House, think tanks, nonprofit organizations, and I've been in the grassroots. There's nothing more powerful than this grassroots movement that exists around the country and its ability to bring about change. We won 1,000 elections, Tea Party versus Obama. And you can see the signs of reemergence of grassroots activism all over this country as it relates to the election, as it relates to Georgia, and as it relates to what we're going to do next with whoever takes the oath of office on January 20. And I endorsed this president on June 16, 2015, precisely because of the issues you mentioned. Those were issues that the Republican Party was overlooking to the detriment of this country. That job is no way is it finished, and that's a separate discussion as to why. And not everything's been perfect these last 4 years either. I mean, this administration itself hasn't been necessarily aligned with the president who's running it. But I believe these are issues that are here to stay. I'm going to make sure they're here to stay, and the people want them here to stay. And Donald Trump has net been a positive force in this Republican Party. He's expanded our base. and he's growing our appeal very broadly.
Well, I hope you're right. If I do become a Republican, it will be so I can vote for Donald Trump in the Republican primary for president in 2024 over some loser like Mitt Romney. Michael, thanks for the time this morning. We'll chat, or this afternoon. We'll chat with you again next week.
Good to see you, Frank.
Thank you. Hey, breaking news. The sheriff has canceled the meeting with John A. Tobacco Jr. So this apparently is a slap in the face to local elected officials, Senator Andrew Lanza and State Assemblyman Mike Cusick. We will get an update from John A. Tobacco Jr. on that subject coming up. Meantime, you're watching Liquid Lunch on Biz TV. I'm Frank Moreno.